Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fuel Your Freedom podcast. This is episode number 18 that you are listening to. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Today is going to be, I always say this and then sometimes it doesn't happen, but I think it's going to be a little bit shorter episode. I want to expand actually on an Instagram caption that I posted over on Instagram last week at Coach Emily Meyer on Instagram, or I do cross post to Facebook, also at Coach Emily Meyer on there. But I had these thoughts while trail running, and I always have some good things that come to mind as I run on the weekends. And now that my running is picking up a little bit, I likely will make some sort of series. So if you're following me on there, kind of stay tuned for that. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. I don't have really any details, but I always have these thoughts that I think would make good posts or captions, and I want to kind of string them together. And I don't know, again, too much about it. If you have ideas, let me know. Anyway, I want to read the caption before we get into it if you haven't seen the post. So here we go with the caption. I was listening to a podcast that used this analogy to relate to education and professional development, but I think it applies well to fitness. Now, I've never been surfing, but I used to be obsessed with it. I watched all the movies, documentaries, and other videos I could find. Seriously, my AIM screen name was Rip Curl Girl, right? But when you paddle out, it's rough water. You're where the waves break and often get pushed back quite a bit before making it out to the calm. This rough water is the fitness world. There's always another diet, trend, fad, workout class, or flashy supplement that comes at you. But those waves aren't worth riding. You simply have to paddle consistently just to make it through that rougher water. But when you do, the calm awaits. Those same waves that were crashing hard are suddenly gentle rollings under your board. You see them, they may still move you, but they don't throw you off the goal of finding that perfect wave. The same is true in fitness. When you're first starting out, it can be rough waters. It can feel like you're taking 2 steps forward only to take 1 back. But then something clicks. You find your consistent stroke. You start to pick up momentum and paddle through the waters, taking more and more steps forward. You may not even realize how far you've come until suddenly there are no more rough waters pushing you back. You've made it through the break and to the calm water on the other side. This is why consistency is important. You can't get rid of the waves. They'll always be there. But you are strong enough to paddle through them. You might just not realize it until you do. It's the end of the caption. Now, as I said, I want to take this a step further. If that surfer were to stop paddling while they were in those rough waters, they would inevitably be pushed back to shore. Right? They would be tossed around, pushed under. They have no control if you simply just stop. There's no way to move. But that doesn't mean there can't be pauses in between paddling strokes, right? Paddling is hard, right? Don't get me wrong, whether you're paddling and surfing, right? I can't say I've ever paddled a surfboard specifically, but I have boogie boarded in my day. I own a kayak, so I've done plenty of kayaking and canoeing and stand-up paddle boarding and all sorts of things. Paddling is difficult, right? Especially if you're battling waves and currents. But there can be pauses while still making that press forward. We can take that break and float, but if a wave starts to crash or the current starts to pick up, we have to start paddling again. The same thing is true in our fitness journey. There will be quieter times when we're able to pause and rest, but they'll then be followed by times we have to continue moving our bodies, if nothing else, to simply maintain the move forward or the distance forward that we have gained, right? In fitness, there are many goals: progression, regression, and maintenance. I would argue that all 3 are choices we make, intentionally or unintentionally, as we move through that fitness journey. There are times where we want to push forward and progress. We paddle hard towards our goals with such intention and vigor that not a single rough patch of water will slow us down. There are no pauses. We don't let up. We catch the dream wave or reach the goal only to find ourselves back at the starting line of our another goal, our next challenge. For example, personally, I've had goals to build strength in a specific lift. If I'm working for my deadlift max, it's likely not the same training plan that will get me there to help improve my running time or improve my fitness in trail running, right? While it will contribute, if I'm not focusing on one specific thing, I become kind of that or something of all crafts, like master of none, right? Like where I dabble in a lot of things, but I'm not really good at anything, right? It's the similar way here. That training program might have one specific goal and other things might come along with it, but we won't simply master all of the things, right? But again, I lost my train of thought. I'm totally off. I'm just going to leave this in. No edits, one take. That's the deal with the shot, right? But so when I do want to improve that other goal, say I do want to switch, I say I do want to improve my trail running, I'm back in the rough waters of starting that new program. It's time to push again, right? Sometimes after we reach a goal, we'll spend time in that maintenance phase. We hit the PR we're working towards and we simply need a break. We paddled through the rough waters, we caught the wave, and we're back on the beach. This maintenance is a goal in and of itself, to maintain where we're at and keep the fitness we've now acquired. This is where we might just have to throw in, perhaps we're not on the beach for this analogy, but we're in those rougher waters. Perhaps we need to continue paddling just to stay where we're at. Or if you're in a current, this might be a better example there. And finally, there's regression, getting stuck in the rough water and giving up before we even have a chance at that perfect wave. We're pushed back to shore without actually accomplishing the goal we had when we first stepped foot in the water. This is stopping. We feel like we've done a lot because likely we have put in a lot of hard work. We have paddled forward, but ultimately we end up back in the same place we started, sitting at the beach and staring at the waves, wishing we had the ability to paddle through them and catch one, right? And again, this is kind of where that unintentional choice might come in. Often we don't intentionally choose to lose progress. Often things creep in. Those paddle strokes that might have pauses in between them get less and less consistent, right? And this is where we don't really realize it until all of a sudden, to keep with our analogy, we have our feet in the sand. But this is where the magic of the pause lives, because if we don't stop altogether, we wouldn't be sitting back on the beach. If we only paused, we would keep the progress we gained, those small pauses in between strokes, while still putting ourselves in a position to paddle further when we're ready to do so. This pause is powerful. It allows us to reflect on how far we've come. It allows us to think about what we need as human beings. It gives us time to check in with ourselves because we do need to reassess our goals sometimes, right? We do need to take that step back. We do need to stop and think, what do we truly want to chase? Is the wave we're trying to catch really the one we want to catch, right? Make sure that it is before we hop on it. A lot of times we'll pursue a goal that might be good for a friend, a family member, a social media influencer, who knows, right? But if it's not what you personally want to do, there's no sense in trying to maintain and push for that goal. Again, is it the perfect wave analogy? I'm not sure. But in my view of surfing through many, many documentaries, it makes sense. The point of this podcast, and really what I want to get across here in what will be a shorter episode, is there's magic in pausing in compared to stopping altogether. If you are reaching a point in your goals when you do want to stop, take a pause instead of a stop. Maintain where you're at. Keep yourself grace during this time, right? We don't always have to be in that constant season of pushing forward. But there's power in looking at things as simply a pause. It's simply taking a step back, taking a moment to reflect before entering another phase of pushing forward, knowing that direction before we start to push. It allows us to see where we want to grow towards and who we want to become in the future. And that brings us to our empowered action for this week. This week, take some time to question. Are you progressing, regressing, or maintaining in your journey? Is this a conscious choice for you right now, or have you found yourself in uncharted waters? Take time this week to define direction in your fitness journey. Next time you want to stop, press the pause button instead. Set yourself up for future success by maintaining where you are now instead of being forced back to the beach where you started. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know it is a shorter episode this week, and it might be next week as well. We'll see how much I kind of get through. But as always, thank you so much for tuning in. If you found this episode helpful, go ahead and share with a friend, family member, coworker, or someone else. And I will catch you guys next week for episode 19.